Okay. Doesn't this look like a nice, inviting place to sit? Isn't that a really nice painting? It really is. Okay. I don't know if I like that. Maybe I need a bit more light in here. It's a bit, makes me a bit small. Let's bring this in. So look better on camera. Okay. No, still gotta go down a bit. Yeah, we're just fucking around with the camera for the first minute. Let's go with this. Okay. There we go. Ta-da! Okay. No, I'm still not satisfied. Holy fuck. This is the kind of stuff that people normally cut out. Okay. I just rewatched Point Break. And Point Break is one of my favorite movies. It really is. It's one of the few movies that doesn't piss me off. In that it doesn't insult the viewer, right? It doesn't try to be more than what it is, and I can really appreciate that. So now, if you're not familiar with Point Break, it's a movie starring Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, uh, a, a few, not a few others. There's like it's like an ensemble cast, really. Some like working actors are in there. There's Gary Busey's in this movie. You know, like this 1991 video, not video. This film. Um, I wouldn't exactly call Point Break high art. It's not conceptual. It doesn't play like David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, for example, or Naked Lunch, or something like that, like some auteur. It's not the Three Colors. Let's put it that way. Or it's not Solaris or Stalker. It's no Holy Mountain. Let's put it like that. It's not David Lynch's Dune, with what's his face in those fancy underpants. Um, what would I call Point Break? I would call Point Break a heist movie in the best way possible. In that it is self aware, right? The movie knows that it's not 100% real, right? And that's something that is thematically common amongst movies of a certain era. I would say it still exists. These film productions that acknowledge that this is a fantasy. Okay, this is not real, right? Please don't base your entire identity or your motivations in life around this movie. Please don't form your entire identity around this character, sort of thing, right? Um, and this is a Catherine Bigelow film, right? One of her earlier ones. I mean, relatively speaking. And Catherine, as far as I can tell, because it was Zero Dark 30. Uh, it, it, that she has a habit of trying to flesh out and humanize, or at least to make the action hero a little bit of the burly man, a little bit more uh, than a one-dimensional uh, character script, right? Like a reference board as to what this character likes to do, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're like there's very few tropes in this, right? There's very few stereotypes, except for maybe the pseudo spiritual surfer bum thing that somehow has miraculous connections and some really nice rental properties. I wondered about the pilot. I was like, if does that pilot surf? Like, how did these two people meet? Right? Is that just a charter? I don't fucking know. It looked like the same guy in both instances. You figured that the pilot would have learned the first time, but nope, he didn't. Um, this movie is very similar to Heat, right? Um, Country Mouse and City Mouse sort of thing going on here, in which both of the central characters, the antagonist and the protagonist, um, see admirable qualities in the other person, and that's what. And the question of loyalty, of course, the principal question of loyalty. Uh, and again, I'll use this comparison as if it hasn't been done before, because, well, it probably has. Um, because Al Pacino's character, the detective, right? He's suffering from an occupational hazard of the job, which is, well, PTSD, or recurring nightmares and alcoholism. These easy character devices, or vices, quite frankly, to make the character more relatable somehow. And again, he understands that it's a fantasy, even though the one section with Val Kilmer and a tactical reload was used, at least by rumor, um, by the Marine Corps to demonstrate the perfect reload in a combat situation. And Val Kilmer was so uh, passionate about getting that correct, and like that's satisfying. There's a few satisfying moments, definitely, in Point Break, right? And I think I can somewhat or at least empathize, or put myself in the shoes of an adrenaline junkie, in which I'm a mountain biker. I used to race downhill, and I was looking for a thrill. I was looking for something that told me that I was alive, right? And I wanted to do something that other people couldn't do or weren't willing to do, and become good at it. But I never really got there. I never really got there. The expense is really what stopped me from pursuing it further. Um, could I do it now? Probably. I probably could, even at 40 years old. There's categories for people that are over the hill like me. Um, but it's like, okay, so back to, I can see why they would want to live like this, right? I understand it. I understand, like, because there's ski bums, there's surfer bums, or beach bums, and there's dirt bags, right? Dirt bags in mountain biking is a compliment. It's the exact opposite of the rest of our culture, in which a dirt bag is someone who's not worth very much, or they treat other people very poorly, and by all consequence, Bodhi or Patrick Swayze, that character is a dirtbag. You know, like Marty Mauser, he's a dirtbag, right? He burns or he puts other people's lives at risk to achieve his own goals, and that's not admirable at all, right? That's the callousness in one of the last scenes, right, is the same as demonstrated again by the bank robbers in Heat, whereas the bank robbers in Heat were more than likely veterans from the Iraq War. That's the only explainable um, reasoning in my mind as to how those characters in Heat would pull something off like that as a four-man team versus the do no harm, be done within a certain amount of time, right? Don't go for the maximum payout. Just keep hitting banks and don't try not to disrupt anyone. But eventually, they crossed the line after about 70 different bank robberies. And well, if you haven't seen Point Break, well, wow, welcome to the world, my son. They made two remakes out of it, and they're probably not all that great. And I'm not really interested in watching them. I like Point Break for what it is as a time capsule, right? And these surfer bumps, they're doing it out of necessity, robbing banks, because you just couldn't have the job, couldn't get a real haircut, and couldn't get a real job because you were just not the kind of person to do so. And again, there's the expression of liberty, as that one scene where Bodhi's on the beach and they're discussing what happened after the sting operation, right? Of the other guys, right? The more obvious guys that were repeat offenders and had a laundry list of drug and violent offenses, which was the more obvious nail to hit on the head. Raised the more God, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm not getting all my neurons to fire here. I think you understand. And you see that again between the two characters. I'm bouncing around here. Not of sorry, well, okay, I was talking about Bodhi, and he was like the freeway thing, where he's like, oh, all those people in those steel coffins, they're looking at us, and we give them a reason to want to break free, and to just just live like humanity used to with human spirit, and that that vague abstraction again. The human spirit, like is like this marionette being dancing around on the beach, not knowing who's pulling his strings, right? It's just some invisible force that's dictating all of these things to happen. You got to make a choice, etc., etc., etc. And there's no consequences to those choices. Everything will be. The future is as ours. You see, que sera, sera. Whatever will be. Yeah, and that's very dismissive, right? It's very irresponsible. The water off a duck's back, as if nothing will ever affect you or change you. And it's like, oh, you could chop off my limbs, I'd still be the same kind of person, So that's more callousness, right? That's more typical of people with mental illness, especially when paired with impulse, a lack of impulse control, and. When I'm looking at these at Bodhi, it's like how did he get there, right? How did he where when and where did he decide that, you know, the best course of action was to start boosting banks, right? And I think there's something in Bodhi that wanted to be a Fed, right? He wanted to this hippy dippy conundrum in which they're young and free, and then all of a sudden, like, oh shit, now I have to settle down and get a day job, right? Or I can just be this promiscuous asshole who sleeps with ever and whomever, you know. Even a starfish is good enough for that guy. Um, you know, so it's like, I don't think it's a, again, it's just this fantasy. It's not 100% accurate representation of being a beach bum, right? Even though there was that one humorous scene where they go around, they're trying to get the hair samples, and Gary Busey's character goes up to the two teenager uh, surfer bums, and they're doing trying to smoke something, trying to smoke some weed, probably under a blanket, right? Whoa, man! Whoa, right? And then, like, I could say the same of Robert De Niro in Heat, in which he sees them, he admires them, and he wants to break bad. You know, he doesn't want to have to deal with all the bullshit anymore. He just wants to go out there guns blazing and do the job without any consideration. Just what was the one line is when the good guys have to act like bad guys or something like that. The heroes have to act like bad guys in order to take down the bad guys, and then there's that that conundrum of morality and identity, and that in itself becomes a trope almost, you know, or a stick or an overused thematic or plot device to achieve you know, the journey of the characters and their development through the film. Um, yeah. Again, it's this is exactly what I was saying, right? It's Country Mouse and City Mouse, and that's what is really a reminder to me of how important classical literature is, because most of the classical works have already been written. We just adapt and recycle in some cases with the lower bar of entry to cinema, or we reinvent it. And again, the reinvention for reinvention's sake is really silly. It doesn't bring anybody else into the box office, and I don't think it wins anybody. As a fan of a piece of art, right, or of something that is a piece of art that's meant to be consumable and disposable, or, you know, that is not intended to be memorable. It's just intended to be something fun, like a flash in the pan. And you know, there's value to that. There's definitely value to that. Not everyone is making Eraserhead, but, you know, in their spare time. Shit, it's all a risk, isn't it? It's all a risk. And like, well, what do I want? What do you want to dedicate your life to, right? And does dedicating your life to something give you its own fulfillment for the purposes of just saying, you know, this is the thing I've chosen to do. This is how I've chosen to live my life. Or like, does the decision that make the definition, right? The choice, or the action, because we can make choices and then not act upon them, and vice versa, right? Whatever. It's just all just every wave. Okay. Every wave is new wave, man. Right? To the observer, right? So if you're standing at the shoreline You're watching the waves roll in. It's all the same continuous wave, but then it isn't, right? It's all the same water, but it's not the same energy each time. It's not the same amount of force or dynamicism, right? It's all about a time, a place, a location, and that's very much like a hippie mentality, right? Say, oh, I'm gonna pop uh, these cactus flowers at a ley line near an Aztec sand monument, and then I'm gonna get down and be one with the earth and the Schumann resonance and all that shit. People have been trying to explain away their bad behavior um, with pseudo intellectualism or spirituality or drug use for decades. It's nothing new, right? In the absence of a religion, humanity substitutes its own for its own purposes. Like if those Aztecs were sacrificing people, or was the Maya, the Inca. One of those Central American civilizations was sacrificing people, and we all know about it. We all know about it. It's like the same way in the Old Testament, right? When the Israelites were influenced by the Canaanites, and they were doing animal sacrifices up until the 12 Commandments were brought down from the mountain by Moses, right? Um, How does he know this stuff? Ugh. You gotta be fucking kidding me. And so it's like it's just one of those Deus Ex, the one of the plot things, right? Where man versus himself, man versus God, man versus nature, man versus himself, man versus beast. That's that sort of stuff, right? But the tendency of cultural criticism is to be very academic, right? And this is something that was made a comment on. I saw earlier today by the internet's darling, Dr. Jordan Peterson, in which he says, it's very common for academics to be dismissive of lay people or the commoner, in which the solution to a problem is immediately apparent by the person that's experiencing it, but unless it's formatted in an essay, they wouldn't even know what it was. And that makes me think of the scene at the beginning of the movie where it's like this sort of the sergeant or the lieutenant versus the new guy, the greenhorn from straight out of Quantico, out of the academy. And oh, look at him! Oh, you look at this guy. He's Mr. Hot Shot, right? Again, more country mouse, more country mouse, city mouse sort of stuff going on here, and that's all I really got to say about this movie. I don't. It's one of those movies I don't want it to be ruined for me, and the only way that it won't be ruined for me is for me to put it back on the shelf, and then wait for the right time to watch it again. And I think that's the best compliment that I could give to the people involved in making this movie. And just like the movie Vertical Limit, right? These extreme sports movies. They all tend to use the same motifs or camera angles, and that's cool. It's like a signal to all of the these junkies to congregate around the ceremonial pyre and burn the effigy at the stake. because a dinner without meat is a mistake. And I love that joke, don't you? Yeah, yeah, it's a great fucking joke. Um, what else is there to say? You know, at the end, Keanu, he lets him go, right? He lets Bodhi go. He lets him decide his own fate. And he says, "Come on, man, I can't be in that cage." And you know what? I empathize with that. I really do. You know, having the rare experience of having been to prison for you know, an extended period of time, although not really long term in comparison to 30 years for molesting a child. What can I say? Sometimes we bark up the wrong tree. And, you know, and he ultimately he follows through with the self. It's like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like he predicts that, or he foreshadows earlier in the movie, you know, about dying doing what he loves. And you know, sometimes we use that crutch, you know, for to make ourselves appear sympathetic to someone else when they die, um, doing something that they're employed to do. It's funny how much of a dual standard that is, right? Like what um, we don't talk about people. So when we talk about a construction worker getting killed on a job site, we don't say, "Oh, he died doing what he was doing." Um, you know, we don't talk about certain professions like that. You know, or we talk about how they have a personal effect on other people, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, yeah, I find that really strange. I find that I don't think anyone wants to die doing they love. I think they would love to see the next day and do it again, quite frankly. And so that's what I'm gonna leave this video on. Besides, of course, making the note about this painting, which is entitled "For All the Women I've Ever Loved," and I did this within 5 months. This was accomplished before I was taken into custody and held as a hostage for a year in a maximum security prison. Um, and you know, I see some of the influence here. I recognize it. You know, subconsciously, I was picking my brain of things that I thought were you know, had some power to them, and you know, another influence being that of course, the famous Japanese woodcut print, The Great Wave. And the commentary more or less has to do with the line from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in which Hunter S. Thompson isn't documenting the race, the dune buggy race in the desert. He's documenting the peak of American excess in the 1960s and early 70s, in contrast to the war, of course, that's happening simultaneously on the other side of the planet. And he says, you know, it's that line about being witness to the high watermark of something, in which you were present, you were a witness to the point of saturation at which something was popular, and then you watched it wash away again. And that's how you learn to surf. Okay. Well, anyways, again, I'll end this at 30 minutes. And if you haven't watched Point Break, I really recommend that you do. Again, it's one of my favorites and one of my favorite Keanu Reeves movies. And I think to me, this is one of Patrick Swayze's better performances. I don't think Patrick got enough credit for this role. And I like it a lot more than him in Dirty Dancing, or some of the other, or even Ghost, to be quite frank. Ghost played more than a few times in my house when I was a kid on the VCR, because that's one of the only movies that we had. So, along with like stuff like Dick Tracy, the Rocketeer, or some Laurel and Hardy Christmas special. If you didn't think I was crazy now, just wait till we start watching movies together. I say that without any pretense. Yeah. Well, honestly, we'll probably just sit here and watch movies until one of us falls asleep. It's romantic, isn't it? Okay, enough of this. That was a reference to the romance thing, because Keanu Reeves did some commercials for Rogers Television up here, and then they aired it more than once while I was in prison. So, it is kind of stuck in my brain, along with some of the movies that were played on repeat. And they just absolutely ruined for me. Not that they needed any encouragement or any help in being ruined before that. Okay. God, it's like saying goodbye to someone that you love. You're like, oh no, goodbye. You hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up.